and we'd like to show it to you today for the first time. And we call it the iPad.
This is the moment where everything changed. Introduced by the man himself. It's been 10 years since Steve Jobs introduced the iPad, and saying that it changed everything might be an understatement. From the way we consume content to the way we create pro content, the iPad has been called the best innovation of the past decade. And a lot has changed for the iPad since it was introduced. And now it's closer than ever to being a laptop replacement. But what's it like to use the original iPad 10 years later? Hey, what's up everyone? My name is Fede and welcome back to another video. And today I want to talk to you about the original iPad. And let me start by saying that this iPad is incredible. And what's so incredible about this iPad is how tough it is. It has been through everything with me for the past 10 years. And it's been a very reliable companion. But let me show you if it can be used in 2020. 2020, it's been a great year for the iPad. We got the almighty iPad Pro, we got the incredible iPad Air, and we got the great and affordable iPad 8th generation. And all these iPads are perfectly capable of handling pretty much anything you throw at them. But what if we use this 10-year-old iPad for everyday tasks? Well, let's get to a point and let's start with design. The concept of the iPad to this day remains untouched. It's a solid glass metal slab of high tech. And the first thing you notice about the iPad, well, you don't really notice it. It's how simple it is. This design gets out of the way to let you focus on what really matters, the screen. This design might be outdated today, but it's still good looking. And when it came out 10 years ago, it was mind-blowing. We have the aluminum back with the Apple logo. We have the huge bezels on the front, and of course a screen. And in this particular design, the bezels come in quite handy because this device weighs 1.5 pounds. Which is not much, but after a while it can get heavy. The bezels work great for comfortably holding this device and not activating the touchscreen. I don't know why I'm talking to you like it was the first time you ever see an iPad. It's great to hold. It feels really good. This design was great. It was very, very hand-friendly. This iPad back then was called thin.
Very thin?
But if you compare it to the current iPad Pro, you can even fit the iPad Pro underneath the original iPad. That's how thick this actually is. I really don't mind the thickness of this device. It's just, I think it's funny how things evolve. On the front of the iPad, we have the home button, and Touch ID was years away from being introduced. No front camera, we have a single speaker, which honestly still sounds good enough. We have the volume buttons, we have the screen position lock button. Yes, it had its own button. We have the power and sleep button, the headphone jack, and now the discontinued 30-pin dock connector. From this iPad to the iPad 8, not much changed on the bottom layout department. And 10 years later, I still love this design. Well done, Sir Johnny Ive. Number 2, performance. This is where the revolution really started. This iPad packs the A4 chip, and this is the first Apple designed chip, which was later used on the iPhone 4. Apple engineers designed the A4 chip with the emphasis of being extremely powerful and extremely power efficient. And of course, they did it. And to this day, December 2020, they still do it. We have the A12Z chip on the iPad Pro and the Apple M1 now blowing the competition way out of the park. The A4 chip was built to run this iPad. It was not selected from a list and then adapted. It was built to do this. The iPad has 256 of RAM, which even back then was a bit underwhelming, but the A4 chip and the integration of all the other elements made this iPad run smoothly and with no hiccups. Now 10 years later, of course, this iPad is going to struggle with many things you try to do with it. So if you want to use this iPad for some kind of work, you're going to find yourself very limited. But if you plan on using it very casually like I do, it still runs great. Number 3, software. When this iPad came out, it came out with iPhone OS 3.2. Yes, 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 iPhone OS. And the last software update compatible with this iPad was released in 2012, just 2 years after it was released, which was very sad, and it was iOS 5.1.1. But now in 2020, I wouldn't count on downloading any more apps since most of them are not compatible anymore. And the ones I have installed, I installed them years ago. Number 4, display. The iPad is all about screen, and it's always been all about the screen. This iPad has a 9.7-inch LED backlit IPS display. This is not a Retina display, and you can very clearly see it. This 10-year-old screen is actually still bright enough, and the touch is as responsive as today's iPad, which is great. Now, of course, if you compare this screen to the current iPad Pro screen, you're gonna notice every single pixel on the screen, and that's not good. But it's still decent enough for casual use like reading or watching some videos. Number 6, battery life. The battery life on this iPad is and has always been great. Easily all-day battery life. And now that I don't use it as much, I get very easily all week battery life, maybe even more. And if you think about the fact that there's a 10-year-old battery life inside this iPad, it's just incredible. It's just wow, 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 wow. Absolutely no complaints here. So, is it usable in 2020? You know, a short, honest answer is a very limited yes. And when I say very limited, I mean that you're only gonna be able to do some web browsing, maybe watch some Netflix, which is cool, and reading books. This iPad is a great reading device and still has access to the Apple Books store, which is very cool. But get this, at that moment, the iPad storage options were 16 gigabytes, 32 gigabytes, and 64 gigabytes, and that's it. And the base model was $499, which honestly is not that bad at all. But right now, I've seen this iPad go for as little as $35, so if you think about it, you could be getting a great Netflix device for, say, the kitchen. When you cook or when you do something in the kitchen, you get a media consumption device for $35. It's good, it's great. It's also a small piece of tech history, which is very cool, and I hold this particular iPad very close to my heart since this was my only iPad for many years. It's not anymore, but it was for many years. So if you own one of these, please let me know. I would love to know what a fellow OG iPad owner thinks about this iPad. So on that note, it's time for me to go. If you guys enjoyed this video, smash the like button and consider subscribing. I would be so very thankful. I hope you guys are doing great, and I'll see you on the next one.